Hey there, welcome to the Agents of Revival podcast. If you're ready to be healed and take full accountability of your life by evolving into your best self, then this is the podcast for you. I am your host, Andrea Griffin Rogers, and I'll share with you winning steps as well as personal tips and anecdotes on how to go from brokenness to wholeness and from scattered pieces to inner peace. So come on in and join me on this healing journey, and let's become whole together. Enjoy it! Hey, what's up, guys? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening to this episode. Welcome back. I am so glad that you are here with me today on this journey that we're on in the Vision series. And today we're going to talk about release old wineskins. Release old wineskins. It's so interesting because I had a plan on how I was going to jump into this message. And then I had a thought come to mind. And it said, listen to somebody else's podcast while you're recording. Well, while you're preparing to record for your podcast. And so I said, okay. So I went on and I listened to somebody's podcast. And they were talking about like almost literally what I was going to talk about, but I just love the way they were speaking about it. And they were pointing out the fact that some of the people that they mentor and coach are really stressed out, especially with New Year resolutions and things. And I was like, I was trying to figure out, why is that? Like, why are people so stressed out? And then as I was listening more to the person speaking, I was like, you know what? I get it. Like a lot of things they were saying, I get it. One of the biggest things is people pleasing. People pleasing. Like a lot of times people are setting up goals in life, and you may be one of them. And so if you're here and you're one of these people, then turn the volume up. And I hope you get encouraged by this message. People set up goals and their focus is doing it to please other people or to compete with others or to just get an applausal or a pat on the back approval of the goals that they set. And it's interesting to see and hear that a lot of people don't set goals for themselves. They set it for other people, whether it be somebody from your past, that could be a parent or something that wanted you to do something. And so you followed that pathway because that's what they wanted you to do. Or it could be somebody in your current state of life right now and they want you to do something. And so you're joining them on that journey and wanting to do it. It makes me think of when I first started working out back in August 2023. For those that may be new to the podcast, I went through a tough, what I call Job wilderness season. If you are not a Christian, then there's a story of a man in the Bible named Job. And he went through a tough season of suffering and testing that God allowed him to go through in order to prove a point to Satan, and as well as to bless Job at the end of the testing, because he knew that Job was not going to denounce his faith, which is what Satan's whole job was. The enemy's job was to say to God that the only reason why Job is a righteous person and the only reason why Job serves you is because you've blessed him with like so much. But if you take all that away, including his health, he'll curse you to your face. And so God allows Job to be tested, knowing that Job would not do that. And Job didn't do that. He stayed honorable the entire time. And when I first was about to go into my Job wilderness season, which in the wilderness means it's a dry season. It's a dry time, a season of separation where every system and relationships and vices in your life become shattered. Like they all crumble down, and it's almost like every door closes in your life. Friendships, job opportunities, health, all of that. I went through it all. even family dynamics, went through it all. So when I went into my Joe Wilderness season, this was back in 2014. And it's all for those that's like, oh, well, I've heard this before. I have a point in saying this, not just to introduce it to somebody that's new, listen to the podcast. I have a whole point, so just stick with me. Okay. So, when I went through that season, at first it was crushing, and God told me specifically, you're going to go into the season. I'm taking you through a Job within a season. Go read the Bible. He said to me, so that you know what you're about to get into. And it was tough. It was challenging. But now looking back, one of the blessings that came for me going through that Job wilderness season was I got to know me better. I got to see some areas of my life I didn't think were there in terms of my agility and perseverance and ability to endure some of the worst crushing blows ever. And yet I still survived. And then also I got to see who really was my right team. And one of the things that I talked about for people that are new at the very beginning of this season 5, I talked about why I'm calling this whole season a vision series, a vision season, because I said I'm going to help focus on key points such as clarity on the vision, understanding your vision, how to operate in your vision, having the right team to see your vision grow, and how to show up and execute your vision properly, effectively, and efficiently. And this all came from my studies as well as just my development in life. And me realizing that vision is not just about business, because we only hear vision talked about in terms of vision. Have a vision goal, have a vision board of all the things that you want to achieve that's successful. But a lot of people don't think about relationships except for marriage. They don't think about the other relationships in your life, friendship goals, and all these different things that tie into vision, as well as your healing and having a balanced life. And how you develop each and every day. All these things tie into vision. And so one of the blessings that came from me going through my Job wilderness season was experiencing the fact that my vision was blurred and a bit hazy, especially in terms of certain friendships I had, or even other personal relationships like family. And it wasn't until I went through that tough season that I realized I needed to go through that in order to release the old wineskins, because there was old people, old places, old things in my life that were not serving any purpose or value. They didn't bring value to my life and they weren't serving any purpose. Now, I will not sit here and say that these people were bad people. I'm not going to do that, because I am all about our own development, our own individual development, not pointing the fingers to blame anybody for any of their shortcomings or flaws or mistakes, even the pain and suffering that they put you through. We're not going to do that. We're going to focus on us, because we can't change who they are. And so I remember also in that season, I had to realize that a lot of my relationships was based on me pleasing them. I was a people pleaser. I would suppress everything that was me, that made me happy, in order to make others happy. I was the person that was willing to show up more and do more than was ever even asked, and would get little in return, and would be unhappy, and then trying to figure out, why am I so unhappy? Why am I so drained from this relationship or this family dynamic or this situationship, this person I'm dating, whatever. Like, why am I feeling this way? And it wasn't until I went through a tough, crushing season, a season of separation from people, from things, from places I used to go, that I really got to see and develop me. And I talked to you about this before. You know, it's very important to allow yourself to grow. And part of that growth development comes in when I say this, let me explain it. It comes from a place of a dark room. I don't mean that you have to go through a darkness of depression or anything like that. I mean that like a photograph, an old school photograph, when you used to have a camera and you had to take the film and develop it in order to get the pictures, they took that film to a dark room. It was a place that was isolated from the light, a place that was isolated from everybody else, because only one person at a time could be in that dark room to develop that photo. And it's in that dark room where the development happens. It's in that dark room where what there is put into some solution that helps purify the image, that helps, take away the particles. They even may hang up the image for a little while to help drain off the excess that is no longer going to serve the image any purpose or value, so that by the time you come back for your photos, it's pristine. It's clear. You can clearly see the image and everything that you wanted to capture in that particular moment is right there on the paper of that photo. It's beautiful, but it had to go through a period of separation from you in order for it to develop into what you can ultimately be happy about and show other people. And so how does that apply to our lives? You may have to go through a season of separation from some people, from some places, from some things even, in order to one day see the best version of you. I would not be here today to encourage you and strengthen you in terms of your own healing journey, in terms of living a balanced life, had I not went through that Job wilderness season. It was tough. It was crushing. It felt lonely at times. I was isolated, but I learned some things. I don't mean isolated from every person on earth. No, there were still people around me, but the people that I wanted to be around me, I had to become isolated from in order to develop into who I am today. So I recognize the value in releasing the old wineskin so that I could become this new person, this new version of myself, the new wineskin, basically. And when it comes to wine, nobody puts new wine into old wineskins because they know that the old wineskins will burst from the pressure of the new wine, spilling the new wine and then ruining the skins. New wine is stored in new wineskins so that both are preserved. Now, this is like an old saying, because nowadays they don't put wine into skins anymore. They put it into barrels. They put it into jars. But they still will not take anything old and put it into the new. Because again, depending on how long and how sturdy it is, or even the flavors may mix. Maybe there's new wine that's being poured in that's a new flavor, meaning for us in terms of life, a new lesson being poured in. And so what was once old there will no longer serve value. I get an example before of a person who wants a new car to be in your garage, and you only have a one car garage, but you got an old wine, you have an old car sitting there. If you want the new car, you got to remove the old car in order for the new car to have somewhere to sit. And don't look for, because I hate somebody saying, well, I can just park it on the street. No, we're not talking about the loopholes. We're just talking about this one parking spot because you are one person. So there's no loophole with you that says, well, I can just duplicate myself. You are one person. And so in order to have the capacity to continue growing, developing, becoming the best version of yourself, the old has to be put away so that you can learn something new. That means sometimes old relationships have to go to pass so that you can be or have room for the new relationships that's going to come into your life. This saying that I've heard in culture about, I'm not really sure where it originated, but like, we don't want no new friends. We don't want no new people around. That keeps you stagnant. It keeps you stuck in the box because your old is comfortable, as well as your old doesn't put any pressure on you because they're old. They've only grown to the level that you've grown because y'all always been together. New brings sharpening. New allows you to become sharpened to the best version of you or even better version of you because it brings a new challenge. It brings a new development. It brings some new ideas that you maybe have never thought of before. I'll give you an example. You know, I recently thank God that, my God, that I've received some new team members that are on my team. Now, I didn't think I needed, well, let me not say that. I knew I needed help. I had been praying to God for help, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how it was going to come about. And so when some new people came and, said, hey, I want to join your team, it was like, okay, great. Agents of Revival could use you. This is wonderful. But I was still trying to control the way I do things. And I talked about this before. And so when they presented something to me, I was going to do something one way. So let's say, for example, we work on a project and I was going to do something one way. And they were like, oh, well, this is my idea. And I ain't going to lie to y'all. When they showed me their idea, it was 1,000 times better than mine. I can be honest, and this is a new person coming in to the team. And they showed me what they had to offer that was valuable, that was new, that was different than the way I had been doing things. And it was like, wow, this is fantastic. Okay. I said, I wouldn't even thought to do all of this. I was going to do it this way. But look, they sharpened me. They taught me something that was of value that I needed to grow. And it became better. You never know how much better you can become, how much more efficiently you can do something until you are ready to release the old in order to embrace the new. You got to go through a season of separation. You got to go through a time period where you allow yourself to evaluate. One thing that any of my former friends knew about me and could say if they knew you would be every quarter, just like you have 4 quarters in a year, every quarter I would do an evaluation of myself, of, and where I'm at and what I need and what I need to work on and what areas I need to grow in, how, as well as how I've been growing thus far. And then I will also do an evaluation of people around me. That means the team. Now, doesn't just mean business. Now, my first example that I said before this one was about business, but now I'm talking about personal. I would look at my team around me. Who's my crew? Who am I hanging out with? Who am I close to? Who am I connected to? Who am I talking to all the time? That could even include family members, which it did for me as well. And I would evaluate the people around me because I wanted to make sure, are we still going the same way? Are we still agreeing on this journey? Are we still benefiting from each other? And I would ask them, I would basically put together like a Q&A and ask my friends. And sometimes my friends would be like, oh my gosh, like again, yes, again. Because I always want to be conscious of, is there a time period coming where we need to separate? And so I would ask them like, hey, how am I bettering you? How am I making you grow? What value am I adding to you? Because if I'm not adding any value to you, then chances are we are no longer going the same path. And sometimes I would have them write it down. Like I would put together a questionnaire and they would fill it out. Now, I'm not saying you do this, but other times it would just be a conversation or me via text message saying, hey, it's that time again. I just want to know, are you growing in this friendship? Am I bringing value to you? Even if it's a family member, are we benefiting one another, hanging out all the time or talking to each other all the time? Because if we're not, and this is becoming stale, if it's becoming stagnant or stuck, if it's draining, if it's depressing, then it means that the grace has left for us to be connected. And it's time to release each other to go our own separate paths. Again, doesn't mean you're bad. Doesn't mean I'm bad. It just means that we have come to a time period where it is time to separate and go our separate ways. And so my question to you is, who do you need to do that with in your life? Or it could be many people. Maybe go back and write some of these questions down that I'm asking you so that you can really take time to evaluate it for yourself and then ask the people around you these same questions. What value am I bringing to your life? What do I do for you? And if all you do for them is tangible things that they can do for themselves, then chances are you may not be bringing any value to them. If all you do for them is outweighing what they do for you, then chances are it's time to separate from that relationship or that friendship or that family ship. And again, especially when it comes to family, doesn't mean you're going to separate forever. It just means that maybe for a season we got to take a break. Maybe for a season you have to develop in some areas and I have to grow in some areas. Because we all should be growing and developing every single day. And if we're not, then what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your time? And so as I was listening to this person talk about this earlier in the context they were talking about it, because they were talking about the freedom that they have found by choosing to love themselves first rather than loving others first and then loving themselves last. And you guys know I'm big on that. I've been telling you about that since day one. If you go back to season 1, I taught a whole series on know yourself, love yourself, then love others. Because if you don't know who you are, you don't know what makes you happy, then you can't love yourself enough and then you can't love others well. Because you'll always be loving from a skewed point of view. You'll always be loving from a judgmental possibly point of view based on how you view yourself. And so when we view ourselves in a better light, when we love ourselves better, when we know our own selves, our strengths, our weaknesses, our boundaries, we're able to respect others. And even when we know our own flaws, we're able to extend grace to other people because we recognize that they're human just like us and they need grace. And so you may have to, in this season, release some old wineskins. It's a new year. And it, again, doesn't mean anything is wrong with that. But you have drank and have poured out as much as you can in that situation. It's nothing left in the bottle, basically. If we look at, because now we live in a time where there's bottles of wine. There's nothing left in the bottle of wine or there's nothing left in the box of wine. Depending on your taste. You've poured out all that you can pour out. They've poured out all that they can pour out. Now it's time to go get some new bottles if you want to still keep drinking. That means you got to get some new vessels, some new people to be able to pour into and them pour into you. As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. If you want to become your best, sharpest self, then that means developing the right team around you that will continue to sharpen you. And if you are operating with a dull knife, you're not going to cut much. If your relationships and friendships, your situationships, your family dynamic is becoming dull and stale, that knife is not going to be able to cut much at all. That means you're not going to be sharp enough to impact anything that you come up against at all. And that means come up against good or bad. You're not going to be operating at your best self. A knife is supposed to be sharp. An axe is supposed to be sharp. A drill bit is supposed to be sharp. A saw is supposed to be sharp. These are objects that are supposed to be sharp so that they can cut through something. Your mind, your heart posture is supposed to be sharp so that you can impact every area of your life and cut through some things that may be barriers blocking you. But if the situations around you are making you dull, then you're not doing much impacting. You're not able to optimize at your best self. And so what areas do you need to be pulled back from? Who in your life needs to be released? Because this is the season, this is the time. 3 points and we out of here. Number one, you got to learn how to prioritize you. I don't mean in a selfish way in terms of it's me, myself, and I, and that's all I care about. Forget everybody else to help everybody else. No. I mean self-love. Choosing to take care of yourself first so that you can then be optimized at your best level to help and serve other people. But if you are an empty cup and somebody is thirsty and they come into your life, or even if somebody is already in your life and they come to you to drink from you, but you're empty, then you have nothing to give them. They leave thirsty as they came thirsty. But when you are filled up with enough joy, enough peace, enough happiness, you are fully healed, you are living a balanced life, then you're able to pour into somebody else without them taking from you. Because while you're pouring into them, you're still being filled back up in the process. It's how reciprocity works. You're able to pour into somebody else and somebody else pours into you. But if you're the only one doing all the pouring, then eventually you get to the point where you are empty. And I had that happen to me where I was the person who was always doing all of the pouring. And then as I poured and poured and poured, I gave. I was empty and depleted at the end of my day, at the end of my friendships, at the end of certain relationships. And I had nothing else to give. I'm drained, giving to you, and not receiving anything from you because this relationship has become dull. This relationship has become stale. And now I'm stuck in something that is no longer serving me purpose. And so that leads me to my second point. You got to be okay with letting go. You got to let go. First of all, control is an illusion. And so we can't think that we are really in control. We're not in control at all. God's the only person that's in control. So we are not in control of our own lives. We think we are, but control is an illusion. Because if you've ever tried to control a circumstance, matter of fact, you know what? Go put your hand in some running water. How much control do you think you have of that water? It's going to eventually start spilling out. So you don't really have any control. You have no control over the pressure of the pipe that's pouring that water out. Nothing. You have no control of the temperature. Even if you try to turn on the cold water, you don't know how cold it's going to get. And so you don't have any control. So you got to be okay with letting go. Stop people pleasing. Because you cannot make anybody happy. That is not your job. And it doesn't matter if they felt like, well, I want you to live your life this way according to my ideology that you should live. Okay, that's yours. But I have to do what is going to serve me. Now, I don't mean this prideful, arrogant attitude that says, you know, again, to hell with you. I'm going to just do things that's all about me and making me happy. No, I don't mean that. But I do mean that, you know what? What's the best way I can say this? I'll give you an example. If you know you are drained at the end of your work week and Friday comes and maybe Monday or even Wednesday, you had talked to some friends or some family and they were having an event on Friday night and you like, bet, yes, I'm definitely down to come to that event because I need a release because this work week has been a lot. Okay. But when Friday comes and you're feeling exhausted at the end of your day when you clock out of work or you send those children to your parent's house or a friend's house for a sleepover or whatever it is that you do, by the time the end of the day comes and you find that, man, it's Friday night and yes, I just got paid, like the Johnny Kemp song from back in the day. That's one of my jams. But you find that, okay, I'm exhausted now. Like, I know I said I wanted to come to this event or this party or go out to dinner with you, but I am tired. It is okay for you to prioritize you in that moment and say, no, I'm not going to please you because you really want to do this. I'm tired. I have only but so much amount of energy in my life, in my day. It's like a battery. You only have but a certain amount of energy to get you through each day before you got to recharge. And so if I only have 20% capacity left after a whole day of spending my energy, that last 20%, I really got to get to myself. I can't give you my last 20% because then I have nothing left to give to myself at all. And so you got to be okay with letting go. And then the last point, develop healthier habits that will benefit you. And the way you do that is by learning yourself. What do you like? What don't you like? What makes you happy? What makes you tick? What do you need to get you started in the day? What do you need to make you feel rested? What gives you energy? What can you use more of in your life? What can you use less of in your life? By the end of the day, how do you feel? And by the end of your day, how do you really want to feel? When you learn more about yourself, then you are able to put up healthier standards or boundaries and create habits that will benefit you in the long run. When I went through my job wilderness season, just real quick before we go, I had to learn to let go and release the old that was not working for me anymore. Like, I used to be a person, for example, that would work all day, whether it be working at a job or just working, tending to other things that, we got to work, tend to in a day. And I would not eat all day because my mind would be so focused on the agenda, the commands of that day, what needs to happen that day, that sometimes I will go all day without eating and drinking anything. So that by the time I got home and was ready to eat, sometimes I'll be too exhausted to eat and I'll just go right to sleep. Now, that's not healthy. That is not a healthy way to live. And then before you know it, I may have went to sleep and then I'm waking back up at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I'm like, okay, you know what? Now I'm hungry. I'm going to get something to eat. And then probably went right back to sleep. That, again, not healthy. And so I had to realize, you know what? What do I need in the morning? I need breakfast. I'm a big breakfast person now because I learned this about myself. I need breakfast. So I am going to pause before I even start my day. My time is my time in the morning for me to get into the gym, for me to pray, for me to read my Bible, for me to meditate, for me to work out, for me to make some breakfast. Then when all of me time is taken care of and I'm at 100% energy and I'm able to pour out into others, then I'm ready to pour out into you. But I learned healthier habits that would benefit me in the long run. I learned balance. I can't just be a people-pleasing person. I can't just say yes to everything. But I can go more and more into this, but we are way over time. So I'm going to let you go. And we'll talk about this some more tomorrow. May Lord bless you and keep you. Cause his face shine upon you. May Lord our God be gracious to you. Show you his favor and give you shalom. Give you his peace. Take care. Love you guys. Bye now.